So when you begin to realize that you have these choices and that they're easier than you have been making them out to be, because while law of attraction does get some momentum going, and we certainly acknowledge that when you get going on something that it affects you. Esther received an early morning phone call this morning. The girls who greeted you when you first came, none of the scanners are working. There's some kind of a electrical interference somewhere in the building. Scanners weren't working, so normal process for check-in had to be changed to something different. And when Esther got that phone call, she didn't like it very much. It was too late to do anything about it. It was too late to come down and reboot. She had some ideas, but by the time she got the phone call, you were all barking at the door. And so when the microphone went whack-a-doodle, Esther wasn't surprised, because she beat a sort of whack-a-doodle drum this morning for a little while. Called her IT guy in San Antonio. He didn't answer. She called his wife. She didn't answer. She called his 16-year-old son. He didn't answer. She called the 12-year-old son. He didn't answer. She rang the house phone. Nobody answered. Nobody answered the telephone. Then she called the IT guy that's supposed to sit in when the other IT guy isn't available. He didn't answer. And so, are you wondering why the microphone didn't work? We're not saying that in this moment Esther created this reality. We're saying you did it. Here's what we're really saying. It doesn't really matter, does it? Doesn't really matter how you got to where you are. The only thing that matters is where you go from here. Where you go from here. Where do you go from here? Some years ago, Jerry and Esther were driving in Orlando, and Esther was driving. She usually did, and Jerry was navigating, but he had been replaced by a navigational device in the car, and he wasn't very happy about it. The first one they got was Magellan. Esther called her Maggie. It was very personal. And Maggie was new to the job and made a lot of mistakes. And Jerry did not really like Maggie very much. She was sort of putting him out of navigational business. So one day they're in the car, and Esther is listening to what Maggie says adoringly, and Jerry gets a smile on his face and says, you do know we're going in exactly the opposite direction of the way we need to be going. And Esther said, no, that can't possibly be. I did everything that Maggie said to do. And Jerry said, well, that may be, but I'm just telling you, you're headed in exactly the wrong direction. And Esther looked at the compass. She had to admit that Jerry was right. And then she said, I know. Let's go back to the original place where we started from. I'll reprogram Maggie, and I'll listen very carefully, and we'll figure out, did I make a mistake and not do something that she said? Did I miss a turn? Is the programming wrong? Is there something wrong with the programming? Then we'll know. And Jerry said, or we could just start right here where we are and go to where we want to be. And Esther thought that was a novel, while somewhat unsatisfying thing to do. Esther wanted to go back and figure out what went wrong. She wanted to know whose mistake it was. She felt defensive, not only of her, but of Maggie. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is that there are all kinds of positions that you may find yourself in that are less than the perfect one that you might be looking for. But if you're always looking forward and realizing that every time something goes a little wrong, that you ask with a stronger desire for the rightness of it, and that your inner being focuses on that, gives undivided attention to that, and offers a signal about that, that if you are not trying so hard to think your way through it, if you are instead feeling your way through it, you can find your way to where you want to be and have all kinds of fun and nice experiences along the way. So you were source energy. You came into this body, and only part of you is in this body, but the larger part of you remains source energy. And these two parts of you are having a vibrational, therefore emotional relationship all the time. If you could accept this very important and actually easy concept as a premise of your life experience, things would begin getting better for you, even better for you, immediately. If you could just ask yourself the simple question many times in a day, am I in this moment feeling satisfaction or something less? Because if you're feeling satisfied, that means you're going with the flow of what you've lined out. If you feel less than satisfied, that means you've got a thought going on. A belief is just a thought that you continue to think. You've got a thought going on that is hindering, adding resistance to the desire that you've set into motion. It is our knowing that you are up to speed with what we just said to you, and it's pleasing to us as we speak these words and we feel your response to know that you're ready to start right where you are and move forward into some new ideas, into some clarification of some things that are important to you. So we're going to begin with you right now. What do you want to talk about? Do not worry, because we will wedge our message in the crack, and we can feel among you what your desires of understanding are. So whether you are called forward to the hot seat or not, it is our absolute promise to you that we will address what you've come to know today. Our encouragement is that you relax and try to find that satisfying place of joining with your inner being, and therefore understanding the conversations that we are having here today, because there's a potential of you accomplishing a whole new vibrational set point, which means every relationship you have with every other person, with every other being, with every other material object, with everything in your life, you have the potential of shifting enough that you will notice as soon as later today the improvement in your own point of attraction. So let's have some fun together. Yes? So what do you want to talk about? This is rich and delicious and delicious.